Do you like my Eugene Krabs gift that I shared on your Facebook?
Yeah. Just roasted me in front of all my friends and family.
Yes.
That's what Facebook is for.
Yeah.
It's for all of your distant people who think you're awesome to realize who you actually are when your close friends comment on your stuff.
Yeah. Or you start getting that bit by that political bug.
Oh, man. Kent goes on huge tirades about politics on his Facebook.
Oh, man. You just have to sometimes. You can't keep it in. That is not true, by the way.
Man, speaking of politics, you guys saw the title to this podcast. We had such a great time with Rob Sand. Slippers is losing his or her mind below the table.
Yeah, you know what? Riley's going to lift the leg after this. We're going to solve this mystery.
Once and for all. So if Slippers in the episode, sorry. But before, it's hot in here. I'm not trying to hang out forever.
I'm sundowning fast. We got to get this going.
We got to go. So welcome back to the Prairie Farm Podcast. Coffee Time Wednesday. I'm your favorite host, Nicholas Lirio. Favorite co-host, Kent Boucher. Yeah, that's about where he's at today. And favorite co-host to the co-host, Riley Rosendahl.
I've been in the AC. I'm not that bad yet.
No, I'm seriously like, I kind of wanted to make a snoring noise there, but it would have been so annoying to hear like on your AirPods or in a car that I didn't do it. So I just did
more like a
I
wheeze.
just did the deep grandpa breathing. But
you know, I've never heard a grandpa snore.
You ever see that Family Guy clip where it's like, well, guys, I'm just going to sit here. Peter's like, I'm just going to sit here and make dad noises. I felt very well represented
and personally attacked. Dude, that is so funny. Well, we're going to turn this episode over to Rob Sand in a little bit, which we recorded earlier. But of course, it's coffee time, and we're not
gubernatorial candidate.
Gubernatorial. Rob. That's a great word.
I've been practicing that word.
Yeah, we need it.
And I didn't even use it today.
Before you guys think we are giving an endorsement to Rob Sand, we reached out to everyone who has publicly announced that they're running for governor that we could find. But, you know, if I can't even find that you publicly announced it, that means you need better press. I've reached out.
That means good luck.
Yeah. We've had a few responses, a couple non-respond. Rob was the very first one to respond and say he wanted to join. So we were able to hang out with him. It's a great conversation. Highly recommend giving it a good old listen. But before we get on to that, and I'm sorry, you got to wait because we're trying to be consistent around here. Kent has got our question. If you guys have a question, go to social@theprairiefarm.com. Send us an email and we will answer it. If we answer your question, we will send you free seed of your choice within certain guidelines. But the point is social@theprairiefarm.com. Send in your questions. We've been getting a lot of questions. We really appreciate you guys sending your questions. And without further ado, Kent.
All right, so this question is from Zach. Zach says, conservationists know the inherent value of biodiverse ecosystems without need to calculate a dollar value for conserving them and put it through a cost-benefit analysis when deciding what to do with the land. Short-sighted politicians and their constituents might only be persuaded to conserve or restore a biodiverse system like a prairie by being shown that it makes fiscal sense. I was wondering if there is proof that in economic terms that prairie is more valuable at the macro scale, or better yet at the individual landowner scale, than other proposed land uses. To take it a step further down this line, I'm also wondering if there is a specific plant thought to provide the most valuable services right now. Thanks to the hosts and their guests. Keep talking about important stuff. We're listening. Your pal, Zach.
Man,
Zach, I like that sign off. Your pal.
I might start using that.
Yeah.
Your pal.
Yeah, I like that.
I usually use blessings. Blessings,
yeah,
Nicholas.
It's terrible. It's just so.
I don't even get blessings. I just get.
It's like when you go.
Can this be done?
It's like when you go.
Nicholas.
It's like when you go to Chick-fil-A and you say thank you. They say my pleasure. It's not your pleasure to make me fast food chicken.
Hey, okay. First of all, Kent has He has a bad fast food attitude. Some people are glad to be there. He's got nothing.
That's his grandpa response.
At best. Grandpa Sundowning. Hurry up. Answer the question. Quit stalling.
Riley, what do you got? What are your thoughts on making money that isn't a monocultured
money?
I think that it's good to put a dollar value to ecosystem services, although I think all too often land isn't realistically looked at. If it's highly erodible and you're trying to use it for cropping, your profit potential is almost zero. It doesn't have to provide much.
What are you using that land for?
Yeah, exactly.
Not your income, but your profit, basically. Because you could make, let's say you make $800 an acre on it, but you'll spend 810 making that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And a lot of, you'd be shocked how many people don't go through that math.
Yes.
They might do it for their full farm over the course of a year.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how many acres just fall in that category.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like across every agricultural state, how many acres are net loss financially?
Yeah. Well, and it's for a farmer, right? Because every single acre that you plant soybeans or corn on, somebody's making money. It might not be you, but
I'm talking for the operator. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I think it's good. I think that until we give some sort of value and you start thinking about what your land can provide, or realistically what it isn't really made for, it doesn't.
Well, it kind of makes me think too of our recent conversation with Hal Herring, where he talked about like a lot of our public land. There's this lusty greediness to like, man, I could exploit those acres and think of the money that could make. And he's like, a lot of it that was already attempted. And the reason it's public land now is because it found out that the only way that stuff exists is if you just leave it alone and let the land kind of take care of itself. And so, as far as exploiting everything, it sometimes it just can't be done.
Yeah. But, and I think Zach's on the same page.
Right.
He's just the people who only are caring about money, do we have a good argument? One, counseling. If all someone cares about in life is money, they probably have a reason, and that reason probably needs counseling. But two, they've worked with some of this, like Eastern Gamma Grass. We've talked to Dr. Laura, not Walter, Dr. Laura Jackson from Tallgrass Prairie Center. She worked for a while on working with Eastern Gamma Grass as a perennial to be able to add
perennial food crop. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There are things like that, but I think the best way to go is cattle, is ranching, because you can really affect the land, have a really strong flora and fauna and land relationship, and you can do a lot of really good things with that and make it viable. Doug Duran talks about this. It's not about profit maximization. It's about financial viability, right? Mm-hmm. So just being able to work it through. Now, another option is Ben Cartman, who wrote Lean Farming, and he makes a lot of money. It's got him and his wife. They support their family. I think they have 2 workers that they also support on this farm. This farm is not an acre. It's not even an acre. And he said every time they started with like 10 acres, every time they made their field smaller, they actually profited more money. They grossed less money, but they profited more money. And he was doing things like herbs and spices for specialty restaurants, stuff like that. And I understand that that's a niche. And niches can be tough. I mean, a lot of times getting into a niche requires as much luck as it does hard work.
You're just saying niche too many times. You're trying to torture me right now.
Oh yeah, Ken thinks it's niche.
It is.
It's niche. We might settle. We might need to settle this on social media.
A poll or something like that.
Look, there's 2 ways to say the word niche. There's the right way, and then there's the annoying way.
Niche.
You say the annoying way.
I think you're wrong. Niche. By your definition,
I'd say I'm gonna go there. I would say my years of science education would give me more credence to how it's said. I have heard far more of my professors, far more scientific writers pronounce it niche.
Niche? No, it's niche. Someone write
it's
in
both,
and tell.
Technically, it's technically both.
Tell Ken why he's wrong.
But there's a right way and there's an annoying way.
No. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man.
I know, and you're niche. Choosing the annoying way.
No, niche is the right way. But if you pick a niche, niches can be tough. They can be tough to get into. like everything I say, Ken's like, I can't even listen.
He's just trying to keep me from sundown. He's trying to keep me awake.
Cover your ears.
Well, another part of this too is what are the costs downstream to amend some of the damages that come from using land in a certain way. If you go clear back to Nick's water quality deep dive that you did, a docu-series that you did, and I guess it was just a documentary. It was one episode, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And you learned about like how much money it costs Des Moines Waterworks to run their. That was a sneeze on the podcast.
Yeah.
To do their nitrogen removal treatment of the process.
They have a very special machine that if the nitrates get bad enough, they'll turn on. It's like tens of thousands of dollars a day.
Yeah, yeah. And they talked about how there was finally they were having to run this super expensive machine so many days that they ended up suing, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a group of counties that had made a sewer system for field runoff or water caught in tile by the field. So they were 48-inch giant pipes dumping into the Des Moines River. No permits pulled for it, and that's not illegal. Their argument was there needs to at least be a permit or some sort of system, and there wasn't. So
to help slow it down. But yeah. So in that case, you might be making this money up front, but your downstream costs are going to be even greater than what your profits are today. So it might be profit today, but 5 years from now, when taxes go up or permitting fees go up or whatever, you end up losing money. So
I think
that's part of it too.
I think from what I've seen and the people that I've talked to, the best way to go is have a small operation. If we're talking making money and having some sort of ecological positive effect, and I would pick cattle or sheep or some sort of grazer that there's going to be some consistency there, and a lot of times it costs more up front, but the sustainability and the longevity and just really getting good at a small operation, you'll be able to get so efficient that it does churn out positively. Just like any business, if you're able to do it more efficient than the others, then that'll work. So that's what I would recommend in terms of species. I mean, that's tough. Like flora, in terms of because we've told people hey, you can grow native prairie, but that it can only go so far. Because if we did our jobs perfectly here at Hoxie Native Seeds, we would be out of a job.
One other thing I want to put in here too, as far as the last part of his question, which you talked a little bit about Eastern gamma grass. Riley and I just interviewed Kelly Kincher from, I think it's KU, right? Kansas University. It feels so weird to say
it's not UK.
State. Yeah, it's Kansas University, right? Jayhawks. We interviewed Kelly on edible and medicinal prairie plants. And first of all, we were amazed by how many fit that category.
Yep.
And, if maybe there became a market around some of those species, Eastern gamma grass is already in that consideration. We've also talked about ethanol, I can't remember the right term for it, something stock, the fiber they need to extract the ethanol out of after fermenting it. Feedstock, that's what it's called. That is another side of it too. Maybe someday alternative fuels with biomass coming off of prairies could be part of that too. So
that would be awesome. That would be super awesome. Well, before we jump in with Rob Sand, June 11th was supposed to be the last day that you could pre-order merch. I'm extending it only one day. So June 12th at midnight at night.
Make Nick stay up extra late.
The pre-order will close. So I'm extending it one day to pre-order merch for conservation. 50% or more, at this point it's probably going to be more, of the profits will go to BHA, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. If you want to know more about what they stand for, we interviewed Hal Herring. He was on last week. Really great episode. He talked a lot about public lands and the importance of them, and just a sharp dude. Really enjoyed that guy. And you can order Hoxie Native Seeds and just look for merch for conservation. And unless you guys have anything else, I think we're on to Rob Sand.
Hey, this is Rob Sand, Iowa State Auditor, running for governor, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
Rob, we really, really appreciate you being here today. You do a lot of things. You help keep our state audited. You're running for governor, and close to our hearts, or specifically for everyone listens, close to Kent's heart.
Yeah.
You're a bow hunter.
Yes. Grew up bow hunting a little bit with my dad. We were talking about that earlier. He's red-green colorblind, so not the easiest activity for him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no blood trails.
Why was he going? Just loved it, or you loved it?
No, he got into it. He grew up fishing a lot and spending a ton of time outdoors. And I actually think that he might be, I should talk to him about this, but he might be a first-generation bow hunter.
Okay. Yeah.
He got me into it, and we hunted, and I didn't, when I was a kid, feel a tag. But I took the bow hunter safety education course, and we spent a lot of time outdoors and did some squirrel hunting too, and lots of fishing. So, and then really got back into it well over a decade ago. I do the urban season in Des Moines.
Oh, very good.
Which is a lot of fun. I bet I've been doing that for close to 16 years now. And
Any sketchy recoveries?
I can't even tell you the story. You should leave this in the podcast, but there's a story that I'm not even going to tell you about.
We're asking off there.
Oh man, that's funny.
It's a great program because most people in Des Moines are pretty regular Iowans. They're sick of deer eating their hostas, and they understand that it's more expensive to hit one with your car than it is to have a bow hunter take care of it. So I've been doing that for a long time, and then I'll do my regular deer season, my bow tag, either up in Winnebago County around Decorah, my hometown, or oftentimes go down to Madison County. My wife's family's got some land down there, shorter drive.
Yeah.
And then I typically do first season shotgun with a group out in Coon Rapids area.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Man, so you make it around.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose I do. And I've done turkey here and there, but with shotgun. I don't have the patience to sit out there with a bow for turkey.
Yeah.
As for as sensitive as they are for movement.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather just point a shotgun and make it go bang.
Some people say turkey heads were made to be shot with a shotgun.
I can't believe you would say I don't have the patience for, and then say, but I love to bow hunt whitetail.
It's weird. There's a piece of it to me. Maybe I use up all of my patience in the fall season for bow hunting. I've also I know you could get both tags, and you could be sitting out there maybe thinking about filling a fall tag for turkey. I've just never done it.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
That's a possibility. But I just feel differently about it.
Okay, I'm going to transition us because unfortunately we're a little time constrained.
Sure.
But it's a perfect transition. You're saying you're willing to have a little more patience for a little better payoff. I won't lie to you. Nothing in the world sounds worse to me than running for governor. Like for me personally, I think that would be so terrible. But and I know there's a lot of pain involved. What possible reward are you seeing, or what pain? Why are you willing to go through this pain?
Couple reasons. I mean, the biggest reason to me is just I've been so blessed in every different aspect of my life. If I was using my life just to further my own means, I feel like that would be a waste of the gifts I've been given. Mm-hmm. My faith is really important to me. I think we're called to love other people and serve other people. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be an embarrassment to my faith if everything that God gave me I was wasting on myself. Mm-hmm. And so my time, my energy, my effort, the state is in a very bad position right now. I mean, literally, we have the worst rated economy in the country, 49th if you want to take the numbers from the Trump administration.
I've never seen that stat.
Yeah. We are number one in growth for cancer.
Yeah.
And the legislature has been using their time to gut the auditor's office ability to find misspent money. That's where their priorities are.
Yeah.
And then they claim they're behind Doge on the...
I look at this and I'm like, okay, that's enough. We need to break it up. It's been 10 years of one-party control. Everybody knows the phrase, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now we know in Iowa that takes 10 years. If you're going after our ability to find misspent money on behalf of taxpayers while our economy is literally going into the ditch, you're doing it wrong.
Wow.
And so to me, Iowans have gotten to know me over my last two statewide campaigns. We've got the best job approval numbers in the state, I think, because people understand we're actually doing a job, not doing politics. And I think that's what we need more of. I'm not particularly excited about either party. I always say, I was a registered independent when I first registered to vote, but I picked my poison because you have to vote in a primary in Iowa, but it's still poison.
Yeah.
And we should talk about the fact that it's still poison. It makes no sense to me that we have to pick one of two parties to belong to.
Yeah, we're totally
Well
with
said.
you. And Brene Brown, for anyone who doesn't know who that is, look her up. She's fantastic. She has a chapter in her in one of her books called "Quit the Bullshit," and she says she's like, "Look, I'm a registered Democrat, but I really want to own my guns, and people that doesn't compute with people because we're so." We're so isolated to
what
whatever.
team are you on?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That's
But
really interesting to me. I'm going to talk to my sister about that. She's super into Brene Brown.
I really like Brene Brown. Yeah, she's great.
I've heard the name from her. I haven't read any of her books.
Yeah, I could. She has the number one, the most watched TED Talk of all time, or did
Whoa,
for a long time.
okay,
Yeah,
all right.
she's good at what
Okay.
she does.
Yeah, I just, people don't fit into boxes. The people who run both parties are desperate to make everybody think that everybody fits in a box.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
All of you people over here get in the box. All those people over there, they're in a box. But that's not true. I mean, I think I'm a good example of that, right? If you went up to somebody in Iowa and you said, okay, there's a guy who is born and raised in a small town, whose faith is very important to them, who owns guns, including handguns, and who likes to hunt and fish, which party is he in?
Right. Yeah.
They'd all say Republican.
Right.
But that's me.
Yeah,
And the idea that it only benefits the people running the party to accept the idea that people have to fit in one box or another. I just think it's killing us because we can't talk to each other.
Right.
Raise your hand if some of your family get-togethers have gotten more awkward
Yeah.
in the last 15 years.
yeah.
It's always caused by an uncle.
It
Turns
kinda
out I'm an
does.
uncle.
No, I got family that listen to this. I ain't saying nothing.
You mentioned cancer, the cancer rate in Iowa. That's
Yeah.
something we've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast. Just how that is a trait of being an Iowan right now. Is we know people who are suffering from cancer. We know people who have passed away from cancer. Who will, sometimes I wonder how many of our listeners will be diagnosed with cancer someday that are Iowans. Governor Reynolds pledged $1 million to digging into what's the cause of this.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part is, we're a conservation agriculture based podcast. It's the main thing we focus on. Correlation is not causation, of course, but I oftentimes wonder even if you had all the money to spend on it, would we really be willing to pull back all the curtains because we're afraid of what it would reveal as to what are the primary causes of this?
Number one problem that we have right there, I think, is trust, right? And I do think if people could find a way to do this that they trusted, they would say, yeah, pull back all the curtains. Let's figure it out, right? And I think that's true of people in any industry. They want to know. They believe in what they're doing. People believe in what they get up and go to do at work every day. But they also want to know. And most people who believe in it, they say, no, I know this is good, and so I want you to dig into it so you can validate it, right? That's like the purpose of an auditor, right? Most people, their attitude is, yeah, come in, do the audit, tell everybody what a great job we're doing. The truth about this right now is, what I think is frustrating, $1 million is a mouse fart.
Right. Yeah.
That's not going to figure anything out. That is $1 million of taxpayer money getting paid out so that she can say, we put $1 million into this. It's not going to give us any answers. And here's the other piece of this. I think there's a lot of people on the left who want to blame agriculture. But correlation is not causation. We need to have really robust data.
Yeah.
And we need to be looking at everything. I literally this morning went around our house and looked at a couple more radon tests. So we when we bought the house, we installed a radon mitigation system. I then did more testing. The numbers were down, but I want to see if we can get them lower. So another entity came out, put a bigger fan on the system, and now the numbers are lower again. Like, how much of this is radon? How much of it is smoking? How much of it is drinking? We should be wanting to dig into this. And here's the other piece of this. This is money well spent. This is investment.
Yeah.
Right? Because think of the cost of treating cancer.
Yeah.
Figuring out what the answers are and doing something about it is going to save a lot of money for taxpayers in the long run.
Man,
Yeah.
spoken like a true auditor. Well,
Yes.
I'll move to something that is more closely able to be caused, not just correlated. I have done several episodes and done a lot of research and interviews on Iowa's water quality, from the CEO at Des Moines Water Works to USDA employees, the state geologist. You just don't get away from the water quality is caused by agricultural practices. Not ag, not farming in general, just the way that we've kind of decided we're going to do ag. And here's where it gets tricky. And I understand we're a little bit playing with fire, but it seems to be it's the way that water quality is now, or we have to mess with someone's pocketbook. How do you even start to address something like that?
And that's, again, that framing, you're right, that's typically the way people think about it. It's so short-sighted.
Yeah.
I think most producers, most farmers, they work really hard to do the right thing. A lot of conservation practices are expensive. And so they look at them and they're like, well, I'd love to do that. Where would I get the resources to do it?
Yeah.
Right? I just read a fascinating article in National Geographic about the impact of beavers on water quality. Like, there's so many different things that we could be doing that we're not thinking about, right? Whether that's improving wetlands, which also adds, good opportunities for hunting. There's a lot of good flyways in Iowa where we could have a great duck hunting tourist program where we could be bringing people in. And those wetlands at the same time would be doing a lot to improve water quality.
Yeah.
So there's lots of win-wins out there, but the posture, again, and we were just talking about this before we started this conversation, or maybe it was in this conversation. But again, this goes down to like, okay, there's a two-party system. And so rather than solving problems, a lot of people just want to yell at the other side because they feel like this is oppositional. It's supposed to be collaborative. And you're supposed to be able to look at the situation and be like, okay, what can we do that we know is going to have a positive impact that we can all agree is a good thing to do? And you just don't see enough of that. I think we need to be focused much more on looking at ways to improve the situation that don't have to be win-loss. They can be win-win.
Yeah. Love it. Well, I know we're getting shorter on time, but Dad has a question that he's been watching for decades, and it is pretty tricky. But Dad,
well, I guess if you become governor, what do you think about agriculture today? Is it going to keep growing the way it is, or do we need more specialty crop growers, or people who are more diverse, rather than the mega farms getting bigger and bigger? And it seems like right now, the mega farmers are winning out, and they're getting bigger and taking up all the ground. And me as being a third generation farmer, I'm getting ready to, move on and try to pass the farm on. I guess over the years, there's never been any subsidies available for specialty crops or anything like that, and where we do things for conservation, and it seemed like the big farmers just kind of run off with all of the money. And just want to know your feelings on what you think the future of agriculture should be.
Well, I the future of agriculture is going to be diverse, right? But for it to be diverse, we need to be making sure that we're supporting every piece of it that needs support. And you're right. We put way too much support into the big guys that are already doing fine.
And they're not really diverse other than corn, soybeans.
Correct. But I would also say this. Again, there's, I think, a lot of folks on the left who like to yell about monoculture, and, they can be very anti-ethanol. If you like Iowa public schools, you should probably want the price of corn to go up, right? Anything that we're going to do is going to inherently impact every piece of the state of Iowa because we are an agricultural state. We have 25% of the world's grade A farmland. We will be an agricultural state, right? We want to make sure we're doing things right and that we're growing. But we also, I think, we need to have stability too. There's a lot of people out there who call for, overarching, super rapid change in what's going on right now. I don't think that that's a smart approach. I think we need to have stability. And this goes back to what Mr. Berlin taught us in 10th grade English class or 10th grade biology class in Decorah. Diversity brings stability, right?
Yeah.
I do think that we should be doing more to support smaller scale farms for a number of reasons, right? Regenerative agriculture is one way to do that, where there's a lot of places where we can improve profitability for farmers by making sure that we're giving them access to these carbon markets, right?
Right.
Whether that's in California or it's somewhere else, we can be a part of that solution. We in Iowa. Here's the other piece. The big farms are so big that you talk about generational change and handoffs. How do you get into farming these days?
Exactly.
It's so hard to do because they've gotten so large.
They can't.
And if we're not doing anything to support smaller scale farmers, then nobody can get to the point where they could take on a bigger farm. And here's the other piece of this to me that I think fundamentally comes from just growing up in small town Iowa. We also need to acknowledge that agriculture is a way of life. It is not just a business.
Right.
And there are people who want to be out there farming the same way that you and I want to be out there bow hunting.
Right.
It is strange that I can talk about the patience that I don't have to do bow for turkey and then also spend hours upon hours out there with a bow for deer to fill 3 or 4 tags every single year. I connect to it for bow hunting for deer in a way that I don't for bow hunting for turkey. There are a lot of people who want to farm. They grew up on a farm. They grew up near a farm. It's the lifestyle. It's the way of life. And we need to be doing more, I think, to support those folks actually getting out on the farm. Because the more we have that, too, the better shape our smaller towns and our rural areas are going to be in. Because then they're going to drive into town to get their hair cut. They're going to drive into town to go to the grocery store, right? But if we don't have those folks living out there in those rural areas, those small towns suffer too.
Yeah.
So, again, when I say I want to be a governor for all, like I reject the idea that this is somebody's fault, right? We are all in this world right now together. None of us picked where we were going to be born or who we were going to be born to. We only have a little bit of impact on our paths, right? A lot of what we do is ended up determined by what we see when we're younger. And we need to take all the people who are here right now and actually put our heads together and work on solving the problems as opposed to just assigning blame and yelling at each other.
Yeah. You touched on something that we also wanted to talk about. It's touted the looming land transfer.
Yeah,
a lot of our average age of landowners in Iowa is something like 68 years old or something.
Yeah.
And so as those people pass away, and we've already seen this in our lifetimes, where you're from Iowa when your family talks about the farmland they used to own, right? That it has centralized more and more, fewer landowners, fewer owner-operator farms. I wholeheartedly agree with what you said there as far as people want to be a part of the farming lifestyle, but it's just so hard to get into it.
Yeah.
And do you have any suggestions for ways that the state could maybe assist in that, so that as we go through this upcoming huge shift in who's owning the land, that a good catchphrase is keep Iowa lands in Iowa hands, and it's not just absentee landowners, investor owners, even
private equity firms,
even people from other countries owning farmland in Iowa.
No, I think that is important. I think we've got a program going on already that tries to match aspiring farmers or folks that want to be farming with people who are ready to hand it off. That's a good thing that we're doing if we're doing that. I'm pretty sure we are, aren't we? You know the name of it?
Yeah.
I know I've heard about it. We should be doing that. We should be doing more of it. This is a place where I'm mostly open to listening to solutions. I'm not necessarily in everything in this race. I'm going to bring ideas. When we're a heck of a lot closer to Election Day, I'll be saying with much more specificity on all kinds of issues, here's the best ideas that I've heard from across the state of Iowa for how to solve this problem. But a piece of this is just acknowledging that it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
And I do think you're right. I think having people who are owner-operators who are there, they're going to take better care of it. They're going to be more concerned and focus on soil health and keeping that soil for the long run. Right. And if they're doing that, then our water quality is going to be better too. Again, win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. Well, so before we end, I want to thank you for giving us your time and for being willing to run. We don't have very long, but we would love to hear from you. You were the only Democrat that had a state held office. And it seemed like a lot of people did not like that. I'd love to hear about your time as state auditor and how that went.
Yeah. Look, I spent 7 years as the chief public corruption prosecutor prior. The Iowa Film Office tax credit scandal, prosecuted those criminal cases. The guy that rigged all those lottery jackpots, uncovered that whole scheme and prosecuted him. Came into the auditor's office saying, we're going to wake up the watchdog. I want to be assertive. Because the only good auditor worth having is one who people are actually slightly worried about, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's 2 stories from my first year in the office that I will take to my grave knowing that we were doing a good job. One was a guy he's a Republican, he's in local elected office, and he's a state employee. And he said, I've never seen more middle managers worried about what the state auditor might think. Perfect. That's what we want, right? In the story here, accountability. It's the same thing as where do your eyes go when you're driving down the road and you realize there's a cop right behind you?
Rear view mirror.
The speedometer, right? You're like, oh, what am I doing? Like, how am I doing? Am I doing everything right? You want to have an auditor that is in the rear view mirror that people know is going to look. There was another story about a guy who told a former coworker of mine, we used to make these purchases at the state agency I worked for. They were technically illegal, but we didn't think they were such a big deal. But we quit doing them because it seems like the new state auditor is more willing to call us out for that.
Wow.
I'm like, yes, I am. I appreciate that. The problem was, we found a record amount of misspent money. We started a government efficiency program so good that the Republican state auditor of Mississippi copied it.
Wow.
But after finding a record amount of misspent money, the response to that in Des Moines was, we got to stop this guy.
Why?
Because they're serving insiders and special interest groups. That's the only answer. Yeah. Because they have forgotten the purpose of all of this. They have forgotten if they got in for the right reasons. They have forgotten why. And they have decided, no, what we want more than anything else is not to be accountable for when bad things happen. There's the only explanation for this. And listen, I'm serious when I say there's no 2 sides to this. Every government accountability entity that weighed in on this said, do not do this. The guy who was U.S. Comptroller General under George W. Bush for almost his entire presidency said, you should not pass this bill. The American Institute of CPAs, which literally writes the standards for how audits work, said, you should not pass this bill. It's going to lead to an increase in waste, fraud, and abuse. So did the Institute of Internal Auditors. They did it because they don't want people to know what's happening with your tax dollars, and we were serious about telling you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Man.
And that to me is like the number one reason why at the end of the day, it's like, well, I'm going to run for governor because why would I work really hard campaigning for a year to keep a job where I can't do much for Iowans anymore,
Yeah, you saw the inside and said, let's make a little change here. And we love it. Well, Rob, we really, really appreciate that you are willing to, as your Instagram bio says, not a politician, but a servant of the people, that you are willing to go out and try and serve. We appreciate that you gave us some time today. And everyone, when you're out voting, for all of our listeners that are in Iowa, and for anyone who's out voting 2026 in November, conservation is a huge issue. I'm the first to say it shouldn't be the only, but it should be a big one that you're thinking about. Make sure you're staying tuned in. And just like you vote with your dollar, make sure you're actually showing up and voting with your vote. And as we know here, conservation happens just one mind at a time.